everyone. Today I have the opportunity of talking to Myles. Myles has done a number of things in the ad ecosystem. Right now, he's the Chief Growth Officer at UofDigital, a leading voice in data driven marketing education. Uh, I figured that I would take the opportunity of talking to Myles about advertising on a whole, but specifically about synthetic audiences and how is it helping marketers as well as brands to think about different audiences even before they launch a campaign. So let's get into it.
Hey Akash, it is always a pleasure to talk. Yeah, I want to talk about synthetic audiences. This has been, as you know, this has been on my mind for a long time, basically ever since you and the Adscape team kind of exposed me to the idea. I had not thought very much about it until, I don't know, whatever, a year ago, year and a half ago, you showed me some stuff that made some light bulbs go off of like, oh, yeah, this could be a very interesting tool. This could be a very interesting tool.
So, in fact, actually, it even dates back into one of the first conversations that we had, and this dovetails well into the first question that I have, which is now we live in an age of privacy regulations. Why do you think, as being a thought leader of the ad ecosystem, that synthetic audiences are becoming a big play for advertisers as well as brands?
I mean, from a privacy lens, like it's could be pretty interesting in terms of like passing data through. So you have data that is of a sensitive nature or contains PII, and you can pass it through AI now to create some synthetic replica of that data set, whether it's based on individuals or anything like that. Even like let's say you had a record set of 2 million records that were full of PII. It's with past methods, it would have been a little bit difficult to work with that record. So you've got to get like a data clean room, or you've got to, pseudonymize it or anonymize it, or, make it K anonymous or make it differentially private. These are very, very difficult things to do. Whereas today it's conceivable to say upload that data set into, whatever, a firewalled LLM and say, can you make me a replica data set of 10,000 individuals that roughly represents these 2 million? And please invent the 10,000 out of thin air. They need to have different names, different addresses, different this, different that. None of these individuals can match, but make it statistically representative of that 2 million. And I think from a privacy standpoint, that gets really interesting because that's a very, I mean, whatever, computationally you're using up a lot of compute power, but from as far as like getting the marketplace to understand that, I think there's a lot there because the previous methods were just so esoteric and technical.
In fact, talking about the previous methods, what is it that you had previously seen that was more archaic and that you always felt during your time on the other side of the aisle that you felt that people could adopt and adapt?
I mean, in terms of it being archaic, like talk about like for instance, let's talk about PI. Let's talk about 2 million records of PII that maybe are sitting somewhere. Maybe in past years they would have sat somewhere like in a flat file, like even in a CSV file, and that gets passed from one company to the next. And it's like, here, you've got to download this CSV and then map it to some new system and upload it. And one of the issues with that, there's a lot of like technical hurdles there that again, if you want to make it a fully private process, like that is a very technical process. You got to get all these engineering teams to build a bunch of secure pipelines to get these records from point A to point B in a compliant or secure or privacy preserving fashion. But the other thing that you're missing is you don't actually know anything about those people. There's 2 million people, human beings, who have interests and cultures and backgrounds and contexts and families and households and jobs and cars and pets. Like these are people, and those flat files like just did genuinely flattened everybody's understanding of these people. These are not email addresses. These are human beings, and that's who is seeing the ad. The email address doesn't see the ad. and doesn't read the email. A human being does. And so I think, again, like LLMs, passing this through AI or LLMs is just an opportunity to kind of like recapture the fact that these are actual people.
In fact, this also like goes down into one additional aspect or one adjacent aspect that you were talking about. Agencies especially were using a lot of flat files and they were using a lot of PII data to make sense of what potentially a audience could look like. Now, given the advent of synthetic audiences, how do you think that this could deliver more value to the end client that an agency is working with?
Uh, in terms of adding value to, so this is something I think about a fair amount these days is like the role that agencies are going to play in the future, which also you kind of have to look at like a lot of the ways that agencies got devalued over the last 20 to 25 years with the rise of digital marketing, especially like data-driven digital marketing, really devalued a lot of what agencies do because it devalued creativity because everything got flattened.
Hmm.
Like you took all of the when the entire ecosystem veered so heavily towards data, it kind of came at the expense of emotion. And emotion is like, honestly, that's the true differentiator in marketing and advertising. It's not data. Data typically is a race to the bottom. Like there just hasn't been. The only differentiated companies there are the really, really big ones, the Googles, the Metas, the Amazons, et cetera. And so when you're able to take data, so you can be data driven, but you can pass it through these AI systems now that can help you redevelop your understanding of the emotional aspects of advertising and marketing. For an agency to be able to now do that with data and help their clients along on that journey, I think is like hugely powerful to be able to add dimension back to this data that's got lost over the last 25 years. And I think that's a lot of why a lot of agency work has become commodified is that they lost all these dimensions got lost. And so there was just less and less for agencies to work with and less opportunities for them to add differentiated value to their brand clients. And now I think AI can help just reclaim some of that because it turns data back from this flat, lifeless thing into something that has just more of an emotional component and a more nuance. If that
Then
makes sense.
it totally makes sense. In fact, jumping to an adjacent swim lane or a different swim lane, how do you think brands should be thinking about this? Because brands for the longest time were in a juxtaposition. They would always think about their audiences, but then they would lean towards Kantar or Nielsen, trying to get a sense for what an audience would look like. Would love to get your thoughts on what a brand should be thinking like, and where do you think brands are headed to?
Um, I mean, it's similar, honestly, to my perspective with agencies. Is just you've got this incredibly powerful new tool for working with data, because data by itself is just totally stripped of life and emotion. Just it's just ones and zeros, and up until now, marketing and advertising technology, marketing and advertising measurement, especially in the whatever digital age, just really sucked the life out of everything. And then it's difficult for marketers to add that life back in. It's like, okay, well, I'm looking at these charts, I'm looking at these data cuts, and it's frankly not easy to be able to imagine, for instance, I don't know, the mental state of the person who saw the ad. When all I see is a chart of who clicked the most or the click through rate, I'm like, okay, well, what happened before the click? What happened after the click? How was their day going? Where did they see my ad? What was their mental state when they saw the ad, and what were they doing? What are they maybe going to do next? And so I just think that there's an opportunity with a lot of measurement to just add an emotional layer, and you could call it a persona-based layer, back onto these raw data sets. Because marketers, whatever, these measurement platforms are not going to stop collecting data. They should keep collecting data. It's not that there isn't value to the data. It's more how difficult it was to turn that data back into something that is classically applicable to marketing and advertising. And classically applicable means it has to be of an emotional nature. And that was a very difficult gap to bridge, again, until AI came along and it was like, no, we can actually marry the worlds of computers and emotion, data and emotion. Because that's what LLMs are like so good at, sort of like replicating human intellect, human emotion. You know, they're able to read, well, in technical terms, unstructured data. It's like, again, a lot of this is it's unstructured data. It's pictures, it's videos, it's songs, it's chats, it's phone calls, it's whatever. There's just a richness to all that information that just was totally unreadable by machines and measurement platforms, like up until very recently.
So to bring a twist to this part, and you spoke about something that I've been spending a lot of time reading about, which is recency bias confirmation. So when you look at a platform, like any of the social media platforms, be it TikTok, be it Meta, there's a recency bias over there because based on recent events, people have certain confirmation towards an event, and in that manner, audiences can be built out. Do you think that we are entering into a world where purchasing patterns are going to drop further and further, in effect making synthetic audiences more dynamic as time moves on?
So you expand for me what you mean by purchasing patterns.
So, for instance, whatever, let's say there's an external event that happens that essentially causes a positive or a negative bias towards a brand, which essentially leads to whether an individual wants to buy a product from set brand.
Yeah, yeah. So wait, external event, you meaning like external just in sort of the real world of
Real
like,
world event. So like let's say for lack of example or for lack of better example, let's say LeBron James wins an NBA championship. Essentially it leads to an endemic effect of people buying more Nike shoes.
yeah, yeah. So I think again, you have an opportunity. So it's very difficult, obviously, to integrate externalities into like either a campaign planning process or certainly like a backward looking analytics process of like looking at your measurement or even of a predictive nature of like let's predict what might happen over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But like that's the beauty of LLMs is like an LLM with a synthetic persona, you can whatever integrate it into your prompt or whatever, is like you can ask the synthetic persona, what else are you passionate about right now? What's the most interesting, I mean, you just kind of raised an interesting question of like, what's the most interesting thing that happened to you this week, synthetic persona? And if you properly prompted or crafted or designed the synthetic persona, they might be like, I was hooked on the NBA games. Like, and you'll be like, oh, now as the marketer or the agency, you're like, yeah, okay, so there's this externality that is influencing things. And it really just reminds you again that the people that you're advertising to are human beings. You're not the only thing in their world. They're not literally just glued to their Instagram feed. There's other things going on out in the world. Um, um, and so I do think it could get more interesting in the future of being able to integrate these externalities into campaigns, which I don't know, could be a way for marketers to break out of the walled gardens, because that's one of the issues with the walled gardens is they offer a very myopic, one-sided view of performance, where it becomes very difficult to understand what was incremental to the other platforms, what was driven by externalities. Yeah, what if I'm selling more shoes and Meta's claiming all of this credit for selling more Nikes, but then I probably, you might know this anyways from other like, aspects of your planning and review process, but like your synthetic persona identifies these externalities that are going on. It's going to maybe make you interrogate that meta performance data a little bit more closely and maybe get a more accurate picture of attribution, of proper marketing mix, causality, I guess, is another. It's like you're basically bringing in the ability to have causality against subjective events. So, an objective event is an ad click that objectively, well, at least hopefully it wasn't a scam, a bot click, but it objectively happened. Whereas like there's subjective things like cultural trends or world events or something that happened in someone's community or something like that that are very hard to integrate. And so there's just that could be an interesting way to kind of like keep helping brands chip away at the walls around the walled gardens.
And this is a lot of food for thought, which leads me on to my next question. Which industry do you feel that synthetic audiences definitely needs it or should be applying it on a day-to-day basis?
I mean, like industry verticals in
Industry
advertising,
vertical. Yeah.
I would be hard pressed to say. I mean, I think that I don't know that there's any marketer. It depends on the marketer's job role. Some marketers, it's just not their job role to be contemplating the finer points of customer behavior or customers' psychographics or whatever. But for job roles where you want to integrate that, I think you'd be hard pressed to find like a vertical where a marketer wouldn't want to have an accurate panel of customers to talk with. Like, just even from my own perspective, helping run U of Digital, we're always trying to contemplate new campaigns, new products to roll out, and we use ChatGPT, or Claude, whatever, as our thought partner in that process. But we haven't gone to the level of having a synthetic panel of potential buyers to talk to, partly because we haven't gotten around to building that for ourselves yet. But if someone could just bring that to us and say, hey, this these synthetic personas are going to be available to you at all times, and maybe they're even going to proactively provide feedback. Like maybe they'll even interject themselves into your process and say, "That's a great idea," or "Hey, you might want to reconsider this because my priorities are here, and your product's priorities are over here, and so there might be a little bit of a mismatch. You might want to rethink your strategy." Like, I would love that. I think a lot of marketers would love that too.
Dovetailing into the strategy part of it, how much do you think synthetic audiences is going to have a positive impact for media buyers and media strategists, both on the brand side as well as the agency side of things?
I think it's like a hugely positive impacts on both sides because it, like it I think a lot of it decommodifies, especially digital media buying, that just it has very much trended towards commodification because it's all seen as just being numbers on a page, which is not true at all. Like different media still performs differently and occupies different places in a person's brain. It's, you're going to work, different media is going to work better in different emotional contexts. And good media planners know this and can work around that. And good media planners, both on the brand side and agency side, it's not as if everyone's forgotten this, but it certainly is more difficult when everything, for instance, is reduced down to like click reports and CPA reports and LTV reports. It really flattens it to be like, well, why don't I pile all my money into the media that drives the most LTV? It's like, well, I guess if you're just looking at the numbers, then that's a reasonable conclusion to reach, but you won't succeed because you're ignoring the emotional component that media plays in an everyday person's life. And you need to have a proper media mix in order to reach all of your goals and have your marketing, like your advertising, have maximum impact. And so, again, I think AI is going to be a way for just reclaiming some of the craft of media planning where you can present, you can have data, everything can be data driven, but then the way that it's consumed or interacted with by either somebody on the brand side or somebody on the agency side is through the lens of synthetic personas or a conversational interface or something like that that's breathing life back into it, which I think is just going to add value back into that job role that it's lost over the last like 25 years.
And for people who are listening to this, for people who are, let's say, gaining knowledge out of this, what do you recommend them to keep in mind as we keep rolling further into the realm of AI and into the realm of LLMs being trained and SLMs being built out too.
Wait, what's an SLM?
Small language models.
Oh, see, you can educate me. That's great. Maybe I've heard that term before, but if I did, I'd forgotten it. So thank you. My number one thing, I mean, I try to tell myself this like every day is just don't forget that you have a new thought partner in your business. Like you, anytime you want, it can either be a specialized tool like AdScape that is finely tuned to a specialized set of, problems and opportunities, or it could be something general purpose like, whatever, a ChatGPT, a Claude, a Gemini, Copilot. Um, but just remember that like a you have someone, an intellect now, a partner to help you, and that partner was trained on like almost the entire internet. like so don't stop banging your head against a wall. Stop, for instance, trying to make sense of like a flat data set of CSV file. You open up the CSV file and your eyes roll up in the back of your head because you're just overwhelmed by what's in that file. It's like, stop thinking about it that way. Don't open the file. Load the file into an LLM and ask the LLM to make sense of it for you because they exist now to help you. And that's, I think there's just we all need to like, it's going to take years, like for all of us to retrain our brains around this notion that we have help. Like we didn't, maybe computers are helpful, but only up to a certain extent. And we've all gotten used to them having this hard limit for how helpful they are. Of like, well, it's helpful that I can get the CSV file electronically, instantaneously. I can share it with anyone, anywhere in the world, instantaneously. That's hugely helpful. And I now have a program, Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets, to help me open up the file and look at the file. That's really helpful. But that only goes so far. But now you have help that goes so much further beyond that. And like this technology is so new that I think that we're all having trouble remembering every day that this help is available to us now.
I think it's the fundamental aspect of retraining the mind to keep in mind that there is an assistance always out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean it's still imperfect. Like this technology is only like 3-ish years old, like in its current form, and so it's like it doesn't work great yet, but it's going to keep working better, and it already works really well. And there's already just like so many opportunities in anybody's day to day to, instead of doing the thing yourself or just whatever, going blind, looking at spreadsheets or whatever, just like you ask for help, you know, ask the LLM for help.
So on that note, in terms of asking for help, any last thoughts, any passing remarks for all the folks listening to this?
Uh, Thanks for listening. Whatever, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you want to connect. I love talking about this stuff, obviously. Um, no, honestly, from the U of Digital's perspective as a training and education partner, we're really excited to learn from tech companies in the marketplace, like Adscape, like you, Akash, like you and your team, hugely educational. A lot of like whatever eye openers for, at least for me personally, and for U of Digital certainly. Um, so we're trying to learn, and we want to learn from brands. We want to learn kind of what marketers are actually doing out in market, like what's actually working, because we're trying to reconcile two things. We're trying to reconcile what the tech vendors and agencies are saying, and then what's actually working from the marketer side. And that's all kind of being figured out in real time. And so it's really exciting for us. And so, I mean, that's the value that I see in, discussions like this. Anybody who's listening, like whatever you have to share is adding to the industry. It can add to the industry, and like U of Digital, we're just really excited to kind of hear from everybody as to what's working, what's not working, what are they excited about, what new thing have they learned. Anyway, yeah, I'm just very much in learning mode right now.
Got it. Thank you once again, Miles. This has been awesome.
Thanks, Akash. Yes, this is super fun. This is really interesting discussion.